Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Explode Your Expert Business Show. And this is the podcast for coaches, speakers, and trainers who want to make a difference in the world and want to grow their business. My name is Simone Vincenzi. I'm your host, the co-founder of GTeX, and we turn experts into authorities. Every week, we release one or two episodes. Either is a solo episode where I share some of the behind the scene or what happens in GTeX, or we reveal a case study with a client that achieved great success, or we have an incredible guest like we have today to share what happens in their business, share their value, their expertise, and also some of the things that they do in their business to make things work. So if you're not subscribed yet to the show, make sure you subscribe right now. And before we get started, I introduce our guest for today. I want to remind you that if you haven't downloaded our Ultimate Experts checklist, then get it right now. You can find the link in the show notes. And this is a tool for you to assess where you are in your expert business, if you're a coach, a speaker, or a trainer. Because one of the biggest problems that there are in the industry is that people sometimes that are starting out, they're doing what people that have been running their business for 10 years are doing, and then wonder why they don't get results. And some people that have been running their businesses for 10 years, they keep doing the same thing that they did when they were starting out, and then wonder why they don't grow. The activities that you do, they are different depending on where you are in your business journey. So we have this assessment tool where you can select exactly will identify where you are in your business journey, and as well point you in the right direction in terms of next action points. So that's the Ultimate Expert Checklist. Make sure you get it. The link is in the show notes. Having said that, it is time to introduce our guest today. It is the one and only Gavin Preston. Gavin is a business growth mentor and strategist with 25 years of experience and track record of helping clients grow and often double their businesses. He's an author of Survive and Thrive: How to Secure, Scale, and Succeed in Business, and the host of the Business Mastermind podcast. Welcome, Gavin. Good to see you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Really, really excited to be here, Simone.
So first of all, tell me, what is your favorite book? You have, and you must pick by one of the one that you have behind you, because I can see that you have a very wealthy library there. Any favorite book there?
Yeah, so my favorite book is probably the second book in this whole topic of growth, personal and business growth, which was the classic Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And then the other one, if I were going to be a cheat, is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. That is just, I love the story, love the cleverness around the way that that's done, and very, very memorable. And then, so those two just stand out. I remember at the time, I've always been a lifelong learner and fascinated by learning. And I remember probably 25 years ago thinking, I'd like a library. And I've got one. It's taken a bit of time to build over time. But actually, as well as the physical books you can see there, I'm a massive fan of Audible, and I'm auditory in the learning style. So I'm often, to the frustration of my two little boys and my wife, to be found with earbuds in, listening to a podcast or listening to an audiobook.
Same here. I love it. Have you been? Did you catch up on the Clubhouse addiction, or
yeah, I have,
yet?
and I kind of went through the other side. So I think I lost the first 3 weeks of January, and I realised, what am I doing here? I am not actually turning this into to business. And I think when people are at different stages in their journey, and then for me, it was actually, I need to be really strategic. So I jump in on two. I'm big into mergers and acquisitions at the moment, and we'll touch on that. So there's a couple of rooms I jump in on that, and I'm on the panel. So I'm really precise about the rooms that I go in that are going to give me the kind of benefit that I want.
I think we had a very similar journey. I discovered Clubhouse, I think was during Christmas holidays. So I was on holiday, I wasn't working at all, and I found myself spending like 12 hours a week, 12 hours a day on Clubhouse. My wife at 4 o'clock in the morning, still being there, like it was a family thing. And I arrived to a point, not a joke. My wife was in the bath in a room in Clubhouse. I wanted to talk to her. I joined the same room. And when the host pulled me up on stage, you say, "Okay, what do you have to share?" I said, "I would just love to talk to my wife," because I haven't
unreal. That's unreal. I love that.
But
I think, at that moment, it's got a little out of hand.
And that moment, like, we both realized that, okay, maybe we just need to use it more strategically. Now we have our
I had a
self-clubhouse
Saturday
style.
where I spent an hour and a half in one room in the morning and then an hour and a half on the other room in the afternoon. And I try to devote as much of my weekends as I can to the family. And so both my wives and my boys said, look, this is not on. And it was just like, what are you doing, Gavin? So yes, that helped me break the addiction.
Yeah, exactly. So Gavin, tell us a bit more about you and your journey, and what got you passionate about the work that you're doing right now, helping other businesses grow and scale, and as well mergers and acquisition.
Yeah, so it goes back to the age of 16, really, where the first sort of spark. My dad handed me a book called "The Success System That Never Fails" by W. Clement Stone, and he was it's a US sales book, and he was a big mate of Napoleon Hill, and in W. Clement Stone book was the famous Napoleon Hill quote, "What the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve." And my dad said to me, Gavin, I was doing my GCSE exams in the UK, and he said, think about getting 9 A's at GCSE and say to yourself 50 times a day, what the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve. And I went, okay, Dad. And I did that, and I got my 9 A's, and it blew my mind. And then that's kind of what sort of triggered this thirst of learning around professional and personal development and growth. So whilst I learned around business and I had my formal training and qualification with KPMG as a chartered accountant, I was always interested in the bigger picture around strategy, around people, around improvements of performance in people within business. And that took me to NLP, and spending in the early 2000s 4 years with Paul McKenna and Michael Breen, his UK business partner, and Bandler on the business applications of NLP. So that took me into the world of coaching in corporates in the UK and internationally, a lot of high potential individuals to really improve their game. And I started relatively young in the coaching game. I was coaching in the city of London as a 26-year-old, and I had to overcome my own limiting beliefs about them thinking, well, what's this kid got to be able to help
I
me?
thought, I was like, how did that work out? Because like, I started my business as a life coach at 22. The irony. People that sold me the course, they haven't mentioned that people don't buy life coaching from 22 years old. They forgot that part. I had to then figure that out on my own. That's why I then switched to youth coaching.
Yeah,
That was a
brilliant.
market I could serve better, and that was the start of my company. I was working about
Yeah.
150 schools every year.
Oh,
But so
amazing.
how did you overcome the fact of, like, who is this kid coaching me, in particular if you're in an organization like KPMG, or where I'm sure that probably you were providing coaching to people that were probably much senior than you or older
Yeah,
than
well,
you?
by this stage, I was out on my own. So I said, by this stage, I was
That
on
was
my own.
on your own, so you
Yeah,
went to work.
yeah. And
Okay,
then I was
okay.
working initially as an associate for other consultancies, but I was still coaching people that were 10, 15 years my senior, that were super clever, capable, high potentials of the future of those respective big corporates. And I know it sounds a little bit cliched about I had to sort my own head out first, but I had enough conviction about, I knew how to run the process. I knew how to coach. And Michael Breen, who I learned a heck of a lot from, he said, Gavin, if you go into your own head and you start to doubt yourself, you just say to yourself, all the answers you need are right in front of you. And he was meaning about the person, the coachee that you're working with. Listen very literally with all of your senses. And I remember it's a little bit of a distraction, sort of a little bit of a segue, but he it was one situation where this guy, and I'm sure as coaches and professionals we've had this, where you get a very negative person that says, "Okay, you coach me," and he sat there with his arms crossed, and was he determined not to be coached. And I got to a moment in the coaching conversation, and I got lost. And instead of my internal dialogue going, what am I going to do? I can't do this. I got this Michael Breen's voice that says all the answers you need in front of me. And he'd been talking quite literally about an analogy of a brick wall, and, been taught to listen to the symbology of the language that's been used in the brick wall. And I just went with a hunch that came and said, well, what if we were to kind of get a lever and just wedge up one edge of that brick wall and just take a peek underneath? What would you see? And I just went with my hunch on that. And I got that from just paying attention to what was in front of me. And that just unleashed a rich vein of conversation. By the end of the conversation, I had the comment that I'm sure many you've had, and many of the listeners and watchers have had, which is, oh, that was much better than I expected it to be. So yeah, I just had to be confident in my knowledge that I knew what I was talking about. There was a time I have done a lot of work over the last 12 years with HSBC Bank, and I was high up in Canary Wharf at a private dinner with the then head of commercial banking, the deputy head of commercial banking, and their senior people. And I was being asked for an opinion about something. And it's so easy in that moment to go, well, I'm not a banker, I'm not a City of London, stock exchange whiz. But I just thought, I know how to coach. I've had a very strong educational background in KPMG and beyond. I have got the smarts to be able to keep up and add value. And I walked away from that conversation recognizing that I had added a lot of value. And so much of it was about trusting the innate education to date and the innate ability that I have.
It is a journey. Like, I remember when I started, I did about, I think, 200 coaching sessions for free. And that what gave me the confidence, because I was gonna then would take note of every single testimonial that a client left me. So then whenever I was going to meet a new client, I had this folder with me all the time. And someone said, so why should I work with you? It's like, oh, well, like, you're just a kid. I'm like, yeah, here's the book. It's like 200 pages. And then I put like every testimonial in one single page. So they have like 200 pages of reviews that even if they were not reading them, they was like, okay, no, this person knows what they're doing. And
I
that
think there's a
also,
piece about being match fit there, that because you've done so many of those coaching sessions,
then it's like, okay, no, I'm good, and you own it, which is also sometimes what people are doing is that they want to run before they can walk. It's like they never done a coaching session in their life, or they never mentored someone, and they go straight into the hype of you need to get high ticket clients. I'm like, become good at what you do first and build your confidence in yourself, and then you will not have a problem to charge high ticket prices because it will be in you. What I want to talk to you now is so what made you like the work? Tell us a bit more about the work that you're doing now, and with
so
businesses and so on.
So what I do is I help people scale and grow their businesses. So whether they're 6 figure to go to 7 or 7 to go to 8, I usually work with people who've hit a plateau. They've had growth, they've hit plateau, and they don't know what to get back into growth. So I work with them developing the strategy and providing the mentoring and the accountability to really accelerate that growth, and map out how they can double their business in a year or less, for example. Equally, I'm really fascinated and into and spending a good amount of time, probably about 50% of my time, in the mergers and acquisition space. So how can I migrate, and it will come onto the conversation that we talk about balance sheet and building the value of your business. How can I migrate from time for money to have built equity stakes in businesses, applying the same skill, but for greater short-term and long-term reward?
Awesome. So let's talk about that. Let's dive deep into the real value, or the real hidden value that there is in a business. Tell where is this value? It's like, where do you find really valuable in a business?
Yeah, I think I'll answer it in two ways. I'll answer it by telling you the journey that most people in their business don't go on, which they should do, and also about my own personal journey through that. So a lot of people manage their business, irrespective of sector, on the amount of cash they've got in the bank. And if they're running short on cash, they go out and sell, win some more business. Next stage on that, they go from cash management to profit management. They look at the profitability of the business. But the third step that not as many businesses think about is balance sheet. And in terms of that, is how do you build assets in your business? And those assets in your business could be the intellectual property, like, for example, you mentioned my book, I mentioned a podcast. Those are assets, digital assets for your business, and physical assets for your business that has your intellectual property in, that can be going and promoting you and creating a leveraged effect, a multiplying effect on your work. Digital courses, YouTube videos. Everybody listening to this and watching this will be very, very familiar with that kind of suite of, online and offline courses and workbook type materials as all being assets for your business. But I think where my mistake, my journey it's so easily that for you to start off, I started off in the realm of the world of consultants who pitched pieces of work of which there was either a leadership or a coaching component, and they sold a program of coaching, for example.
Yeah.
And so that was ingrained in me early in my career. So, and then it was further reinforced in the way that an accountancy firm would pitch and secure a program of work, that just became my way of doing it, rather than earlier on thinking, well, what assets do I want to create and how do I actually grow the fixed assets of the balance sheet, intellectual property of the balance sheet, and products that I can sell. That, because ultimately the biggest challenge that we've got as an expert business is when we decide to stop, as Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi say, being dancing bears. When we decide to stop being dancing bears, is there any value in the business? How do you earn any revenue? And it's the people that you brought in that are equally adept at implementing your IP, your system, your coaching approach, your training model that can carry on. It's the licensing of that training model that you've done. It's the books and resources. So, this isn't new to a lot of people, but certainly 20 years ago, I wish I'd started on that journey earlier in terms of building those assets. And the other thing that I also found I had a challenge with was always swapping time for money. So I would take on more and more work, get more and more fully booked, to the point of burnout. And then the other thing that would happen would be I'd help clients achieve some phenomenal changes in their business that transform their business fortunes, their personal wealth, their family life, etc., all for the better. And then they'd go, "Thanks, Gav." I'm done.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate. I've done it. And so then you started off all over again. So I actually saw in some cases my clients doing better off my input in their business and lives than I was doing off that. So I wanted to find a way of getting stakes in businesses so I could get a leveraged effect from the equity. So I could still put my time in. And in some cases that would be sweat equity. In some cases that's still with a fee. But then I'm creating a leveraged effect in that business to help grow the valuation. And the focus on the coaching isn't then just about helping you be a better CEO. That focus on the coaching is how do we grow the valuation of this business so that in 3, 4, however, 5, how many years time when you want to sell, your business is worth more money.
And then you have also an active stake in the business, like you get a share as well. That's the business model.
Absolutely. And so now we're also making use of a really powerful software tool that can able to quantify the elements of the strategic interventions. So one of the hardest things around coaching is to take something that's a little bit amorphous and intangible and make it tangible. And so we've invested in a tool that enables us to be able to say that if we implemented each of these different strategies that go 40 levels deep within a business, and you just made an incremental percentage increase, 2-3% increase on each of those areas, this is the impact cumulatively it's going to have on revenue and on profit, and then you can demonstrate an ROI against of your coaching.
And what's the name of the tool that you mentioned?
Yeah, it's called the Profit Acceleration Software, and I work with coaches to help them bring that on board. It's a very powerful tool, and it's a top tip really in terms of transforming the business. And if anybody's interested in finding out more about me, then then just drop me an email, and I'll give details at the end.
So that's the Profit Acceleration Software. We're going to talk probably a bit more about at the end about that, but it is like I love if you're following the thread here. On leveraging your time, because you arrive at a point where your business and your personal brand has value until you speak, until you coach, until you're there. There are a lot of people that have tried to say, okay, like they take a business which was heavily based on a personal brand and moved into a company brand. Either is a long transition to make, because now you need to basically change all the perception that the company has or your clients, and depending on how many years you've been going through, it's a different game. Or then you can leverage the time, the money, and the income that you are making with your coaching and speaking business, and as well either invest in other companies like we are doing. Like we have about at the moment 8 companies that are part of our investment portfolio. So we started with GTeX, And then now we have GTeX Future Visions, which is our investment company, which also owns a percentage of GTeX and the other companies that we have invested in different fields. And that's a way in which we can leverage the work that we are doing. And also about the creation of intellectual property that you mentioned. These are assets that the blog post that you're writing, the podcast that you create, the content that you make, the case studies that you produce of your clients, and so on. Those are all things that add value to your business. Because even if you're not actually, Gavin, what would you say to someone that says right now, oh yeah, that sounds great, but I don't want to sell my business. Why do I need to do this? I don't want to sell it.
So
like,
my question, in true coaching style would be, at the point when you want to stop doing the coaching or doing as many days or coaching sessions, where else are you going to get income from? So what have you put into have you invested in a pension? Have you invested in a property? Have you got something that could sell? Because a lot of people in the expert business, as soon as they stop turning up to deliver, they have a stop in their revenue.
And I want to add something on top of that. So one is, what would you do? Like, what's your backup plan? Because otherwise you find yourself in your 80s or 70s still delivering. And it's fine if you still want to, but it's a difference between wanting to and having to.
For sure.
That's a different thing. And the other part is that you will exit that whether you like it or not. One day you're going to die.
Yeah.
So,
or you could have an accident or an illness, and goodness me, the last year's shown us about that.
Right. So exit is going to be there whether you like it or not. So what's going to happen to the business? Either it dies with you or something happens. And sorry if I brought the news, but yes, one day we're all going to die. Oh, like we didn't know. And that's how, because I remember at the beginning, I don't have any intention to sell GTeX. Like this business, no intention to exit, no intention to sell. And from the beginning, I was like, yeah, but I don't need to build all this other stuff. Fortunately, my business partner thinks in a different way. And it made me think, it's like, one day you're going to die. So what are we going to do? That you have a very good point there. So can you give us some more the elements or some of the things that you're doing in your business to build this kind of assets and what these asset categories are?
So in the coaching practice, what I'm doing is I've obviously written and published a book. I think 200 and I've recorded now something in the region of 240 episodes, but published about 212 episodes of my podcast. So those are assets that I've created in the book. Joint ventures have been a massive, partnerships have been a massive strategy for me that's worked very well. I've had a long-standing partnership with HSBC Business and Commercial Bank in the UK, which has seen me doing 2-year national speaking tours with them. And now I'm doing much more ad hoc than an organized national speaking tour, but I am still speaking in front of their customers on Zoom on a regular basis, providing value that generates leads and puts them into coaching programs. And then participating in and bringing tools in such as the profit acceleration software and building a team of coaches underneath me that can go out there and deliver the work with clients. So it's not just dependent upon me turning up and doing all the delivery. And for a long time, because I love it and I wanted to just do it, but I recognized that I need to create a leverage effect now. So one of the first questions at the front of my head is all the time is, what can I do to leverage this?
That's a great question to ask. Like, what can I do to leverage this? What can I do to leverage this? What can I do to leverage this? And every time you create something or you're going into a business partnership, that's a great question to ask. And there is also Ben Chai, who is an investor, and he mentioned here on Facebook that like he made more income from tiny percentages in other people's companies. That's some like a business model that can work, in particular if you have if you're a coach and consultant and you work with businesses for the work that you do with the business owner, taking an equity exchange. Now you're having
and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm taking small percentages in those businesses and providing a huge amount of value that's growing the business, that's growing the equity of that business, growing the balance sheet.
And so
also helping.
do you get then paid dividends or do you get paid on exit?
Well,
like on
both,
sale?
and yeah, both. What I'm helping them do as well is keeping the mind on when will their exit be, for how much, for them to plan what kind of passive income do they need after that, but also what are the things that can be done between now and then in order to maximize the valuation on exit. What are the things that we need to do around systems, around processes, around succession, around protection and legal protection of IP, for example? What are the things that need to be doing around building out efficiencies in not only the profit and loss account, but also building out reducing risk for an investor, so you can increase the multiple that's applied to the EBITDA and sale. And this is this is an in-depth area, but it's a fascinating area, and for me it's a natural extension to the coaching work, the KPMG work, and all the strategy work that I've been doing, to be able to apply it, but in a leveraged way, by taking a stake in
I'm
people's
curious,
business.
like, what if someone is, let's say, someone like, I think this can be applied very well to business coaches that have like background, that they understand company, they understanding growth and scaling, they understand businesses. That's a great business model. If someone is interesting, is listening right now, you have not applied it, explore it. It works. I'll leave it there. But if someone, let's say, I am like a health coach, I'm a
Mhm.
life coach, and not necessarily have that expertise on growing and scaling businesses to then get this kind of equity exchange, is there something that they could do that
Yeah, well,
could, from your experience?
I'll give you sort of two distinct answers from that. The first one is they could obviously create an online program. They could create digital assets that they could sell globally. And of course, you only have to just see, like, was it Tony Robbins UPW they did virtually over this last weekend, that he had 30,000 people registered, but 70,000 people, I think they reckon, when they added everybody up in the rooms in individuals' houses. The digital reach globally is so much wider than it was,
Yeah.
more people coming online every year. So you can create that. But the other mechanism that I would encourage you to take, a great book, another recommendation, is Profit First. I'm sure you've heard of it, by
Oh my
Mike.
God.
It's
Yes.
just such a brilliantly clever book. And it's a book that I can't believe it wasn't written until the time it was written, but it just works. And that discipline about creating different pots of money
So
as a
talk a bit more about Profit First. How does it work? So then people can have it, because I can go on and on about Profit First. It's just like transformed our business, and we implement that system in every, like, we will not invest in a business if they don't, if, like, one of the prerogative for us, we're going to become business partner with you if you implement Profit First. That's how
yeah.
important it is for us. So can
Yeah.
you tell us a bit more about Profit First, and like like the basics, because there are different layers
So
to it.
yeah, there are. So just as a basic introduction, what most people in their business, they pay themselves last. So they'll pay their employees, they pay the suppliers, but the last person to get paid is themselves. And ultimately, if there's not enough money left to pay themselves, they don't take any money out of the business. That money that they do then have and take out, they may well then spend it on a new car or holidays or whatever. And so there's nothing around saving, about building assets, or et cetera, et cetera. So what the Profit First, Mike Michalowicz's book talks about, he switches it on his head and say, right, you're going to take out a certain percentage of that profit from your business for yourself first. You're going to put it aside in a separate bank account, a separate deposit account. And then you work out a percentage, how much you need on tax, how much you need to pay suppliers, how much you need to make payroll. And if you haven't got enough money to make payroll, there is no way that you would not make payroll. So you then go out there, win more business, and drive more money through the system into the pipeline with those different percentages. So you might start off in a business and you might ultimately start off with, say, I'm going to just take 1% off as profit. And then I might need 70% in operational expenses. And I might need to keep 20% to one side as tax. But you start to put money in a really disciplined, automated fashion into these different accounts. And then you start to fine tune the amount of profit percentage, so that you grow your profit. As you create more efficiency, you grow your profitability, your profit percentage to 5%, 10%, whatever that you can sustain.
It is like, I don't know if you ever came across like the jar method of personal finances, right?
Yes, sure.
It is for everyone who's listening. It's like the same personal finance principle that you can find in the books of T.R. Becker, or a lot of books that they teach about personal finances, of allocating money and percentages in different buckets. You do that with your business to make sure that you always get paid, and to make sure that you always have profits. And it is fascinating because it, like you will, if you follow that system, you will always have money. Like the only times where we had financial problems within GTeX is when we never followed that model. Like when we didn't follow that model, the cash flow was all over the place. Like we couldn't track anything. We would have profits at the end of the year showing in the accounts, and it's like, where's the money gone? We actually don't have this money. While following that model, you always have money. And like I remember, sometimes like if people think, oh, I just need a bigger business and my problems are going to be solved. But with a bigger business, you're also talking about bigger numbers about everything. Like I remember once we had to pay a 25 grand VAT bill, and we didn't have the 25 grand in the account. That's not a good conversation to have with a
That
tax man.
No, and that was one of the starting points I would have in a lot of businesses. Are you at least doing one account which you're saving up for your VAT, you're putting money aside for your VAT, so you immediately take 20% off your revenue, off your invoices, and put it to one side. Obviously, you're going to have input tax, you're going to take off that to reduce that, but you've then got a contribution towards your corporation tax bill. So yes, that was the one of the things I look to do straight away with any business that's having cash flow challenges. You need to keep the money to one side for VAT.
Keep the money for one side for VAT, keep the money for one side for profits, for your salary,
Oh yes, yeah.
because you are the most valuable employee of the business. Yeah, if you don't get paid, like I think, actually, what would you say to people that they have the like kind of the martyr syndrome? And when I say the martyr syndrome is they pay themselves last, they always think provide about the business first, and so on, which is in a way logically makes sense. I'm here, I'm the business owner, I'm there to provide for everyone else. What would you say to that situation?
It's an oft used response, or arguably overused, but it's the aircraft safety briefing analogy. Put your own oxygen mask on first before helping somebody else. If you're going to carry on putting the time and the energy into your business, making the sacrifices that are implicit within running your own business, taking the risks, you need to be rejuvenated in some way. And it's not just about finances, but if you've got a level of stress about paying your mortgage or your rent, and you're not even being able to afford to go on a holiday and stuff to recharge your own batteries, then what are you doing it for? And I think there's a lot of business owners end up, if they were going into an employment, they wouldn't work for the hourly rate that they end up working in their own business, the amount of hours that they put in. And I just don't think that you should settle for that. You're worth more than that. And one of the ways to drive up the amount of money you take out is to put it one side, and then you're forced to generate the income to cover the rest of the bills.
Was there a moment in your life where you had to implement it, when you were like, actually, my hourly rate is not worth that, this is not working? Can you tell us something more personal around how did this
Yeah,
apply to you?
I had a situation where earlier on, much earlier on in my career, I had accumulated some credit card debt. I did a heap of property trading at the time, where they said, "Hey, go and rack up your credit card limits, and then you can spend stuff on credit card debt." And I got very focused on investing a lot in my training and development, which was good and had a return on it. But the credit card debt amount amassed, and then I went through a divorce, and that cost me money. And then I found myself in a situation where I had £100,000 worth of credit card debt, which was an
Man,
awful
that's a
bad hill
lot.
to situation to
Mhm.
find. And then what I had is I took a loan from actually my brother, and we managed to move it from like 25% interest to 2-3% interest with my brother. And then I just worked really, really hard to pay that down. But one of the things I did manage was that whole idea about those different buckets. I just got cash envelopes out. So I took cash out. This is my family budget. So there's a certain amount of money that I need for groceries, a certain amount of money for for day-to-day stuff like grabbing a coffee, grabbing a sandwich while I was out and about, certain amount of money that I could spend on presents and clothes or whatever. And what was in that envelope in cash was what had to last me to the end of the month. And there's something about when you're dealing with cash as opposed to just slapping your card and contactless, when you just don't get that sensation of spending. That discipline really helped me, and I actually cleared down the debt in something under 2.5 years. But
Wow, that's a very short time. But and I think this is a great message for everyone who is watching or listening right now, that is in a financial situation where it's like, oh my god, like I got so much debt right now. And following this piece of advice that can transform like your life completely. And
And the thing, yes, the mountain may well be a big one to climb, but don't give up. You can find a way. There are mechanisms to, you might be able to, swap consolidate the debt, swap it, put it on lower interest rate. There's all sorts of strategies like that, but just really careful managing of your spend. And this day and age, how many subscriptions, how many apps have we, did an in-app upgrade, and we've got £5 going out here and £15 going out there. Just going through your bank statements and just being really careful about what you're spending money on. And
that's it. That's an awesome thing. Like every year, my business partner and I would just like sit down and print all our bank statement, PayPal statements, and so on, and circle different markers. Like it is somewhat therapeutic actually, going there different markers and see which one are which expenses that we have that are bringing money to the business, the ones that are necessary to run the business, and some of the ones that they are like a nice to have to run the business, and see if we have to drop them, or there is something more affordable, or if there is a negotiation that we can put, or we can cancel them.
I've started to be really more proactive on price comparison websites. So personal car insurance, I just accept the quote for renewal because I was busy, and I wouldn't even look, just this week, I just went onto a price comparison website, found another quote that was £150 cheaper. So I went for that. And I'm doing the same on utility bills. And it's just being more careful about the spend, as well as being focused on how you allocate the income.
Great.
So yeah, recommend Mike Michalowicz, Profit First, phenomenal book.
Incredible book. Now we are moving to the final part of the interview, talking about lifting the veil, and that's the part where we ask our guests to share a tip or a book or an app, something that you are using right now that makes your personal life or business better. What's that for you, Gavin?
It's really prioritizing the mindset piece of a morning routine. So I've always loved my exercise, and I do the exercise in the morning. And then if there was time before the kids woke up and needed to be got to school, I would do the mindset stuff, and I switch it round now. And so I create a little bit of a hybrid where I'm visualizing my goals. So I have a track of music that works for me, and I'm listening and visualizing my goals. I'm doing a little bit of a section of Tony Robbins priming on the YouTube. So just Google Tony Robbins priming, and I do the gratitude piece, the cleansing piece, and then the visualization piece, which works for me. And then I've got an identity statement. So this is the future version, Gavin 2.0 or 3.0 that I'm growing into, and I'm reading that out. An app that has helped me with that identity statement and reading it out is called Think Up. And that basically means you can record affirmations or statements, sentences of your identity statement, and then you can set that to music, and then you can listen to that. So after I've done that, I've got a Peloton bike. I'm a massive fan of the Peloton, so I'll jump on the bike, and just as I'm warming up, I'm listening to some of the mindset stuff as well.
Oh, I love them. Taking notes. We put in the show notes the Think Up app, and that's something never heard about that before.
Yeah, it's an orange icon with a bit of a leaf on it. I would hold it up to screen, but my 3-year-old's just nicked my phone, so
it's okay. And that, from what I'm understanding, like you're recording your affirmation, your statements, and then it automatically, like, you can select a background track. And
correct.
You listen to your affirmation into your own voice.
Correct.
Very powerful. We like that. So tip here, prioritize your mindset piece before anything else. Whatever you do.
Otherwise, because it is mission critical. So I'll do that at least 5 days a week. And I found that's really helped me a significant amount.
All right. That's awesome. Thank you very much, Gavin. So before we wrap up, what is the how can people reach out to you if someone wants to connect with you and work with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, so if they want to find out more about the book, Survive and Thrive, How to Secure, Scale and Succeed in Business, go to surviveandthrive.cc. I'll give you the book. You just cover the postage and packaging. So that's there for you. And you can also grab yourself an audiobook if, like me, you love the audio domain. And then if you want to find out more about what I do, check out the Business Mastermind podcast, or reach out to me at gavinpreston.com.
Awesome. So all the details are going to be in the show notes. So make sure you scroll down, contact Gavin, and let us know. Like, send us a message with, in particular, Gavin. What is something that you've learned from this interview, and do it right now? What is something that you've learned from this interview that you're going to implement and you're going to apply, or maybe something that really stood out for you? Sometimes we do a lot of these interviews, and as a guest as well, we don't know the impact that you are making. And so if you let Gavin know, I'm sure he will appreciate it. And then make sure you get his book. Now, to wrap up the conversation, Gavin. So if we were to wrap up now the conversation that we had today in a minute, I'll leave it the moment over to you. What would you say? How can we wrap up this conversation here?
In the Stephen Covey in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People says, begin with the end in mind. Within your business, within your coaching practice, your expert business, what's the end game? Is it an exit? How much do you need to live off comfortably in your retirement? Start working backwards from that point in terms of building assets in your business that have a value that either you can sell or you can license, that can provide you with an income. And then the income that you bring in from your activities in your business, what other assets, whether that be property or the stock market or wherever, or the commodities, can you invest in, again, so that you can generate other streams of income that will see you into a comfortable retirement.
That's awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Gavin Preston. Thank you very much for being with us, Gavin. Really appreciate it. And it was a brilliant interview.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been great. I loved it.
All right. Thank you very much, people, for listening or watching to the show. If you're not subscribed yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button now. And if you enjoy the episode, then leave us a review. Reviews are the lifeblood of the show. They make the show better. It helps us with our ranking, to be honest, and if it helps us also with the work. So if you enjoy the interview and you want to return the favor, then leave us a review. And also it helps me with my ego. I like it. I like to receive good reviews. What can I say? Having said that, I'll see you next time for another episode of Explode Your Expert Business Show. And remember that together we grow exponentially. Ciao.